Namaste. I'm Dr. Sandeep Nair, a teacher by profession. I'm here to introduce you to a beautiful book called A Beautiful Mind. In fact, How to Have a Beautiful Mind by Edward De Bono. Edward De Bono is perhaps one of the most multifaceted genius we have today. A physician by qualification, a psychologist, an author, a trainer, a consultant, has written nearly 67 books, which has been translated into 37 languages across the world, and has been termed as one of the 250 most influential people in the recorded history of mankind. Now, in this book, How to Have a Beautiful Mind, Edward De Bono basically tries to explain that the physical body is just a means of attraction. What retains people's attention is a beautiful mind. In fact, a beautiful mind has been defined as a thought process which is appreciated and which generates affection. He goes on to say that the body may fade and get old, but the mind evolves and becomes beautiful. In this book, which contains 18 chapters, I would like to give a brief understanding of selected concepts and dimensions of thinking. Now, there's a chapter, the book starts with a chapter called How to Agree, but there's an interesting chapter called How to Disagree. Now, agreeing to disagree is a very, very important part of interaction and conversation. Now, how do we disagree with people? When we understand that people's opinion or expression arises out of their own beliefs, education, experiences, values, and understanding of life, we would be able to see their perspective. And once we are able to see the perspective or the source of their thinking, it would become very, very easy to disagree with them. In fact, without disagreeing them as a person, as an individual, disagreeing to their thoughts or context of explanation, it becomes possible to politely disagree. And ability to agree to disagree is a fundamental aspect of connecting to people. So we have to make it politely and to be specific and logical in our disagreement. It's very important to understand that we need not be right all the time, and hence disagreement becomes very, very important. That takes us to another context, in the context of how to differ. Now, let's understand, when we differ with a person, we have to examine whether are we differing over a fact or an opinion. Very often we have huge amount of arguments over opinions. Please understand, opinion is a perspective and everybody has a right to an opinion. And just the way I have an opinion, others too have an opinion. So there is no point on differing on an opinion. But if what is being exchanged is a fact, and if we have to differ, facts speak for themselves. Trying to understand the source of factual information will give us correct perspective. So when you have to differ with a person, please understand and clarify whether are we differing over a fact or an opinion. Differing over an opinion is basically an exchange of arguments which may not lead us to anywhere. So therefore, differing is as important as disagreement, but let's be clear about what is the source of our difference with people. And just like individuals, everybody has a right to opinion and we have to respect that. How to be interesting. In fact, Edward De Bono has another book which is How to be Interesting. But in this chapter called How to be Interesting, he says it's very, very important to be interesting rather than intelligent. An interesting individual generates curiosity among people, and people are interested, attracted to a person who's very interesting. Then how do you be interesting? How do I generate interest among people? On a very basic premise, there are two things about a subject. Either you know something about it or you don't know about it. If you know something about a subject, select very interesting, unique facts about it and present it. Maybe if you are talking about the Chandrayaan or the space mission, which you know about, you may definitely come out with the importance of having a space station or a mission to moon as to how it will generate further knowledge of us outer space. Now, if you don't know anything about space or astronomy, then how to be interesting? To ask very inquisitive question. To ask very inquisitive question connecting the priorities of the governance. Is it important to spend millions on a space mission when the land or when the governance needs funds? So the question I am trying to present to you is, whether you know something about a subject or you don't know anything about it, it is still possible to be interesting, either by sharing interesting information, otherwise throwing up very, very inquisitive and insightful question. And please understand, being interesting is very, very important according to De Bono in trying to develop a beautiful mind, because you're trying to explore information and understanding. How to listen? According to Edward De Bono, he says, the most important means of being attractive is to be a good listener. Listening is a very, very difficult but a very important activity. Listening is a very conscious activity, and we have to decide to listen to an individual. Now, how do we listen? In very simple way, Edward De Bono says, when you are listening, get involved in the conversation. Involve as in interrupt, to ask question, to explain, asking the source of information. But if you are going on listening for a certain conversation, then always listen, being prepared with notes, making concept, taking down words for an interaction. So your listening has to be not just a mental activity, but a physical activity of taking down notes and concepts from the presentation. And also, while listening, avoid speaking to oneself. Let the listening be too focused, according to Edward De Bono. What is being said and why is it being said? When I say why is it being said, I am trying to connect the talk or the presentation to something that is relevant to me. In my own profession, in my own personal interest area, there is something relevant in every talk or information that is related to me. So always develop a too focused way of listening. What is being said and why is it being said from my context, and that makes you a better listener. Proceeding on to a chapter on how to question, Edward De Bono gives a very interesting concept called parallel thinking. In fact, he is the originator of the word lateral thinking or parallel thinking. Here, he explains the concept of cooperative exploration. How do you view a certain phenomena with multiple dimensions or a very comprehensive dimension? To explain this, he gives 6 dimensions, categorized or termed in 6 different hats, with 6 different colored hats. The white hat, the black hat, the yellow hat, the red hat, the green hat, and the blue hat. Now, what do these colors mean? When you have to understand about a certain phenomena, apply the white hat. And the white hat is about what do you know, what are the facts, what are the clear understanding about a topic. Now, what is a black hat? When you wear the black hat, you look at it as critically as possible. As critically to analyze as possible, trying to find the negatives of that particular phenomena. Then you change over to the yellow hat. Yellow, valuable, gold is yellow, you know. So, why is it valuable to us? What is the value to us as an individual, and what is the value of it to a general concept? So what is the value is generated from thinking from the yellow hat. Then you put the red hat on. Red is about blood, so in the sense energy, emotions. What is the emotional perspective involved with that phenomena? What is the emotional reaction about the issue? That is gives you through red hat. And then when you put on the green hat, green is about fertility. What are the further ideas that this particular phenomena will generate? What are the other concepts which it will lead to? Look at the other possibilities. And then we go to blue. Blue is about imagination and infinity. How can we creatively adapt and understand a phenomena? So this 6 thinking hats by Edward De Bono is perhaps one of greatest contribution to constructive and trained thinking as we understand. Speaking about values, what makes us humans is values. Values is the basis of our identity, and all our actions and thoughts reflect our values. But then today we have to understand what is the value that we are trying to represent. Are they personal values? Are they professional values? Are they organizational values? Are they cultural values? Values of religion, values of nation and society? Now, whenever we are trying to evolve, we have to understand clarity about the source of these values and where is the clash of values. There can be a clash of values in terms of professional and personal values. There can be a clash of values in terms of professional values and national values. So therefore, understand the source of values so that we connect better. Speaking about question, how to question. Question is a source of knowledge enhancement. In fact, Socrates is considered the father of philosophy because he raised only questions. Speaking about how to question, De Bono says, a question should be an attempt to enhance understanding and should express one's knowledge and not an attempt to find fault in the phenomena. In that context, how do we raise question? When a certain topic or a subject is being discussed, if I don't know anything about it, then the first and the most simple question would be, what is the source of this information? What is the application of the information? What is the comprehension and relevance of the information? What is the associated or connected topics relating to the information? And a question can be open-ended or close-ended question. An open-ended question is when you're asking a question, you open it up for multiple interpretation. A close-ended question, you are compelling them to answer yes or no. Now, based on our understanding, questioning can be various ways, but the purpose of questioning is to be enhancing understanding and connectivity and exploring commonality rather than finding faults with a certain phenomena. How to interrupt? Edward De Bono gives a very, very simple explanation. Would you ever interrupt a singer? Would you ever interrupt an artist? Then how do we interrupt a speaker? Every speaker is an artist in a performance. So we have to understand how to interrupt. There may be very, very many ways of interrupting a conversation. It's mutually accepted and mutually understood. Now, we can interrupt with a certain expression, with a certain sign of raising a finger or raising a hand. However, it has to be acceptable. Please understand, interruption is to enhance our own understanding. So let the interruption be very clear, very precise, and very, very acceptable to the speaker or the presenter. And interrupting somebody can lead to a certain disturbance in the flow of the thought as well as understanding. So let the method of interruption be very, very acceptable and clear. Finally, speaking about how to develop an attitude, according to De Bono, attitude is a sense of righteousness. Everybody has an attitude and develop an attitude. And attitude is our way of evaluating the positive or negative of a certain phenomena. It basically expresses our sense of righteousness. And when we have to develop a certain attitude, De Bono says it's very, very important to have an attitude of a learner, an attitude of a contributor, an attitude of a student, a participative, pleasant and a positive attitude. Because with a negative, destructive attitude, nothing gets constructed. So therefore, developing a sense of righteousness should be a very positive and a participative way of contributing to one another's conversation and understanding. Thus, De Bono in this book explores 18 different dimensions of developing a thought process. This is a guide to help you think better, develop the skill of thinking. In fact, De Bono makes in a prefatory says that a lot of importance is being given to development of knowledge and information, but thinking is a skill which needs to be developed. And for beginners, this is a very, very valuable book. Thank you.